morning. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts. Welcome back to the Mayor's Table. Again, this morning, my guest is City Manager Rob Mays. And Rob, thanks for being with me once again on the Mayor's Table.
It's always a pleasure.
Rob, this morning I want to revisit a Mayor's Table segment that aired back in June. It had to do with Public Service Company of New Mexico's release and filing of its integrated resource plan with the Public Regulatory Commission. You'll recall, and I hope our viewers will recall, that integrated resource plan calls for the closing of San Juan Generating Station in 2022. So it provides for another 5 years of operation of that coal-fired generation facility. Of course, we own an interest in Unit 4 at San Juan Generating Station. It's now a 2-unit configured plant, and our ownership interest was about 8%, I think, in the total plant operations. I'm not sure exactly what that number is now with the closing of Units 3 and 2. But nevertheless, it's a significant asset in our generation portfolio. And the announcement by P&M that it intends to close that plant, close that operation, has a fairly significant impact on our community. The purpose of this segment of the Mayor's Table is just simply to update our viewers on the status of the process. The IRP was filed by Public Service Company of New Mexico with the Public Regulatory Commission in early July. So the official filing occurred then. Actually, it was probably late June, and the July 3rd date was the deadline for the filing of protests. We, after a lot of thought and internal discussion, decided that we would not file a formal protest in the formal proceedings at the Public Regulatory Commission at the state of New Mexico. And I want to provide some of the basis for that decision to our viewers of the Mayor's Table. Let's just discuss some of the issues that we considered in our decision not to protest.
Yeah, well, that's an important point. We would not, well, probably first of all, we want to make sure the public knows we've not forgotten about this issue, because we know with the economic impacts and real jobs that there's a lot of people this is on their mind every day. And the fact that it has maintained a huge priority of our time and effort over this last summer, and we haven't forgotten about it, nor do we intend to. In terms of the considerations, I mean, really boiled down to that we have more opportunities still in the future to intervene in the regulatory process, that we really just felt after lots and lots of hours of consultation with other stakeholders, other owners, our attorneys, with P&M, with Westmoreland, the mine operator, that we just really felt that the best chance to extend the life of that plant beyond 2022, at least for now, was for us to maintain a very positive, collaborative, working relationship with those key stakeholders to work together to see if there's a better answer, to create what has been coined the so-called soft landing, to extend the life for another 5, 7, 10 years. Recognizing that it won't last forever. But right now that collaboration is happening. People are at the table and working hard on any and all creative ways to possibly extend the life.
And as you mentioned, our primary focus is on an extension of the life of the plant, delaying for several more years, minimum 5 years and possibly even 10 years, delaying the closure of the plant. The closure of the plant will necessarily have a dramatic impact on the mine itself. Obviously, the plant would not be needing any coal, and the coal owners would be needing to look for another outlet for that product. So we're interested in the economic impact on our community. We recognize that the coal plants here are going to close someday, and we're interested in trying to defer those closure dates as long as we can. Our decision not to protest was based in large part, as you mentioned, on our desire to maintain a good, strong working relationship with all of the stakeholders, including Public Service Company of New Mexico. One of the outcomes that we are exploring as we speak and plan to aggressively explore in the future is the possibility of new ownership of the plant, maybe a different configuration of ownership. And we need Public Service Company of New Mexico to be a partner with us in those discussions.
That's right.
The protest of the Integrated Resource Plan that was filed by Public Service Company of New Mexico could have been an inhibiting factor in that future relationship and the ability to have those discussions. So we were cautious, but we realized that we ultimately do have the ability to interject ourselves in the regulatory process. If the Integrated Resource Plan is accepted by the Public Regulatory Commission, the next step in the regulatory process would be the initiation of the abandonment process, the formal abandonment process. And that would have to be initiated on or before July 1st of 2018. So by choosing the course of action that we have, foregoing the opportunity to file a formal protest at this early stage of the process, we have given ourselves about a year's time to see if we can find a solution that works for the current stakeholders and for possible future stakeholders in this plant and in the mine. And so I think that the decision was a prudent one and a wise one. We've had some questions that have been posed to us about why we didn't file a formal protest, and we've provided this explanation in those venues where we've had the opportunity to do so. I think this Mayor's Table segment provides us another opportunity to explain to those who watch this venue what it is was the basis for our decision. So let's talk just briefly before we close about what form some of those steps are taking right now.
Well, again, we're involved in good faith collaboration with the owners, stakeholders, the coal mine, P&M, looking at everything from operations, efficiencies, how the employment structure would work, labor, fuel costs, everything we can to see if we can come up with a way to make that coal plant competitive economically. It's got to compete in the market if there's going to be a third party that might have an interest in some type of ownership or in marketing that energy. So that's the key. We have to become more efficient and cut costs and find a way to lower the bus bar price to a place that it could be competitive, on the market. And I would say that we're optimistic. I mean, there's still many hurdles. I would not want to give people a false sense of assurance, but we are optimistic, working very hard at it, and have seen some good positive discussions that we might very well pull this off.
I think it's really important that we also emphasize that the plant in its current configuration of operation is environmentally compliant with all federal rules and regulations.
That's right.
And laws. This is something a lot of people don't realize, and
That's
I
right.
think we need to reemphasize that as often as we can. It's not as though a lot of money still needs to be spent to bring the plant into compliance. It would even be compliant with the Clean Air Act that has not been enacted into law, but the Obama proposed Clean Air Act. This plant operation is currently compliant with what those regulations in that law would impose on plant operations. And P&M is still, I believe, in the process of installing selective non-catalytic reduction pollution control devices and equipment at the plant, and that is going to even further the improvement in emissions and the control of emissions into the atmosphere here in our local environment. So we think that there's still plenty of time in which to work towards a solution that would be beneficial to our local economy, be beneficial to those who are currently employed at the mine and at the plant, provide some additional element of job security for them. These are very valuable jobs, and they provide a great amount of disposable income that supports our local economy. And so it's definitely an argument based on economic opportunity as well.
It is, and we've been quick to point out not only that is this environmentally compliant, that's a great point, but this is a statewide issue. This isn't just a San Juan County or Farmington issue economically. There's impacts to our entire state. About $170 million will be lost of recurring revenue to various government entities from local all the way up through the state. Our state has certainly not been in a position to absorb a loss like that. And then again, as you point out, the potential job loss has a trickle-down effect all through our state's economy. So we've worked hard to try to get the attention of our state legislature, to have them understand this just isn't a San Juan County Farmington issue. It's a statewide impact.
And I think I would note for the viewers in closing that the formal protest process is underway, and there were a handful of interveners, protesters, who filed protests against the Integrated Resource Plan filed by Public Service Company of New Mexico. There are also a handful of individuals and entities that filed statements in support of Public Service Company's Integrated Resource Plan. So the Public Regulatory Commission will be scheduling hearings on those protests and those statements of support, and will ultimately make a decision whether or not to accept PNM's Integrated Resource Plan. Again, when that happens, and assuming that the Integrated Resource Plan is accepted by the Public Regulatory Commission, then the next phase will be initiated, and that is the abandonment process. A whole new series of hearings will be held to determine whether or not, in fact, the plant should be authorized for abandonment. So a lot to be done in this process, a lot of opportunity for us to be engaged in it. We will update you again at an appropriate time about the status of this process, and we hope that you found this particular segment, this update, informational. Rob, thank you for being my guest again this morning, and thank you all for being with us once again on the Mayor's Table, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next Monday.